G'day guys, and welcome back to episode of our Kart Class Podcast. Today we're going to be looking at the number one setup mistake that parents make at race meetings. Now, parents have a lot on their plate. They're basically got to try and get their kids' karts sorted during the week after work. They've got to try and take their kids to the track and get them on the track and obviously have a half-decent setup to give these kids a chance. But what tends to be the biggest mistake that parents make is in the tyre pressures. Now, when it comes to tyre pressures, it's a little bit of a guessing game because it's very much on grip level dependent. It's very much on, whether it's sunshine or it's cold, so it's a temperature dependency. But it's also on the amount of laps that you drive in a race, whether it's qualifying over, say, 4 or 5 laps in some instances, or if it's a 20-lap final. How we want to try and combat not making these mistakes is a lot of parents aren't too involved in checking the hot pressure of the tyres. Now, what I mean by the hot pressure is you set them at just say a base of, let's just work on 10 PSI. We set all the 4 tyres at 10 PSI, but then what happens is when we come off the track, so once our session has finished, whether it's a 5-lap or a 20-lap session, we're not recording the hot pressure data. And what that does is, if the track is anti-clockwise, as an example, so it's mainly left-hand corners, your right rear tyre is going to increase the most in pressure. So you're trying to offset a lot of these tyres so that when they come off the track, they're all a very similar tyre pressure. And that's going to give your kart the best balance. So again, if we're setting them at 10 PSI, we set the right rear at 10 PSI. We might set the front right at 10.5, so that half a PSI increase. Now the left front is going to do very minimal work because it's an anti-clockwise track, which is all left-handers. The left-hand front for the right-hand corners might do very minimal work. So you might set that at 11 or even 11.5 PSI. So 1.5 PSI difference to the right rear. Your left rear, around 10.5 PSI. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to find that when we come off the track, they're all going to be around that, say, 13 PSI. The tyres typically increase by about 2.5 to 3 PSI. If you're noticing that they're increasing by more than that, then we're simply just too high in the pressures. And so if they're increasing by 4 PSI, the starting pressure is too high or the driver is just way too erratic. They're skidding around the corners and that's what's actually increasing the tyre pressure by so much. With the hot pressure, we want to sort of know the window where we're performing the best. Now, from a max's point of view, so for a lot of our cadet karts, I'm sort of finding that around 14 PSI seems to be a very ideal working tyre pressure when you come off the track. Now, for some tracks you can start at, or even temperature ranges, you can start at 12.5 PSI and they get to that 14, maybe a little bit over 14. On a hot sunny day over a long distance, you might have to start it at 11 or 11.5 to reach that 14 PSI mark. But what we're doing is, if you come off the track and one tyre is at 14, one's at 14.5, or one's at 13.5, we're readjusting it while they're hot. So we're not sort of letting it sit for 30 minutes or an hour and then readjusting. We're trying to either take a bit of air out, or we're trying to put some air in to get up to that 14 window. And what you want to try and do is stabilize it as quick as you can. Once you leave it in the shade and they get back to that cooler temperature, then you recheck where those pressures now are. So they might be, again, 10 or 10.3 and, again, 11, 10.8, whatever it sort of works out to be. But that gives you the best balance across all your 4 tyres. And once you've sort of set them once throughout the whole day, there'll be very, very minimal adjustment from there. Once they've had a heat cycle, now practice days, you get a lot more sessions, or they're quicker sessions. The frequency is a lot quicker between cadets, juniors and seniors, where on a race day it might take possibly 1 hour to 1.5 hours between your sessions. So the cooling off period is a lot more on a race day compared to a practice day. But when the tyres have some sort of temperature still in them, we're going to find, again, very little difference between adjusting the pressure between sessions. Sometimes on a coaching day, after session 1, I've set the hot pressure, pretty much don't need to adjust it again for the whole day. Pretty close. When you've got a stone cold tyre, so it's the first time on the track, they increase the most in that window. So they're going from literally the coldest the tyre's going to be the whole day to, the kids are pushing really hard, so they're going to increase the most. And so you might find that the second time you go on track, because you've let some of that air out, they won't increase as much the second time or the third time on the track once they've had that heat cycle for the session. So just try and be aware that tyre pressures are really, that's an integral part of the grip that your kid's got on the track. So try and set the tyres evenly across when they come off the track. So they're not going to be even when you go onto the track. You can set them even once. You can set them all at 10 just to get an idea on the difference when they come off the circuit. And like I said, once you come off the circuit, whichever ones are under that ideal working window, just increase the pressure. If some are over, squeeze a little bit of air out. And then recheck them the second time, and they should balance out pretty close to that hot pressure that you're looking for as well. So again, aiming for that sort of 2 to 3 psi increase as a maximum. Anything more than that, we're probably starting a little bit too high, or the rim that we're using is holding too much heat as well. So it could be a number of factors, but for now, let's just get the pressure right. Let's get the balance across the 4 tyres right, and that should give your kids a half-decent chance to do well on the track. So hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Give you guys a couple of little tips on how to set your pressures and what to look for. And if this podcast has helped you out, feel free to share it to other parents out there who could be a little bit stuck with their kart racing and are getting a little bit frustrated. Trying to give you guys some insights into helping your kids at the racetrack, so you don't need as much coaching out there and you can do it yourself. So until next time, guys, I'll keep in touch. Thanks very much.